Hey, I'm the American television sitcom Friends, and this is what I did last week. I haven't talked to you all year. It was another slower week. I didn't do anything too crazy. The majority of my time was actually spent just leveling alts with the anniversary event coming to an end. I wasn't expecting on leveling this many alts with the anniversary event, but for some reason, I felt like leveling, and then I kept thinking like, oh, the anniversary event ends soon, so I have to be leveling as much as I can. And Dark Moon Fair came out on Sunday, so I got another 10% buff, and I was just flying through levels. So I was able to get my Death Knight, my Balanced Druid, my Warlock, and my Vengeance Demon Hunter all to level 80. The main reason I'm doing this is to get every class to level 80 so I can get the Class Connoisseur achievement. Kind of annoyed that they didn't add that earlier because I did that multiple times over in Mop Remix, but alas. I think I have 4 more classes left to go, and I'm going to be taking a break from leveling for a little bit just because I kind of burnt myself out near the end of that. Speaking of the anniversary event, my thoughts on it were that it was okay, I guess. I feel like the promotion they had for it made it seem a lot bigger of a deal than it ended up being. It feels like there was maybe 2 weeks worth of content, if that. And it didn't really feel like it was a celebration. It kind of felt like every other anniversary event, but with a little hub with more stuff to do in it. And the stuff that you could do wasn't really that fun. So it might have just been like a misunderstanding as to what I thought the anniversary event was going to be, but I thought it was going to be a much bigger deal considering it was 20 years. I think the rewards and stuff were cool. It was just the actual stuff you could do during the event just seemed minimal and, well, like I said, overall just not that great. But what did you think of the anniversary event? Did you get everything that you wanted? Was it interesting and fun for you? Let me know in the comments. Speaking of fun, outside of leveling my alts, I was also playing my warrior a bit. I did 4 plus 10 Dawnbreakers this week, all of which were timed. With those crests, I was able to upgrade most of my gear and get 2 more item levels and jump up to 632. I have 1 more piece of gear that I have to upgrade 2 more times, I think, and then I'm fully upgraded. But then it's just a matter of getting better gear from there, because I'm still wearing mostly heroic gear. My vault did have some mythic items, but after simming it, it was actually the heroic Spelunker's Waning Candle from the Delvro that was the best item to take. I also had the Skarmorak Shard trinket sitting in my bank from earlier this expansion, and I knew not to disenchant it because every other expansion I will replace the piece of gear and then immediately disenchant it, and then Blizzard will tune some stuff and suddenly a trinket from Season 1 is incredible again. I'm like, oh, I have to go refarm that. I learned my lesson, I did not disenchant it, I left it in my bank, and I'm glad that I did because I could use it once again. So I replaced both of my trinkets, one of which I already had, one was from the vault. And then also on my warrior, my guild was making a half alt raid for Mythic Nerebar Palace. I was able to jump in there and get 4 of the bosses down, so I'm a 4 out of 8 Mythic Raider. Overall, the fights seem pretty the same as they do on Heroic. Maybe there's something else for other roles, but for the most part, I didn't really notice that much of a difference. The only boss that I noticed differences on was Rashinon, and they were just so much fun. I really liked the changes that they made on Mythic. It's still my favorite fight from that raid, and I'm glad that I got to experience it instead of just watching videos. And then moving into the achievements of the week, I was able to get 140 more points, so I started at 42,970, and I'm ending at 43,110. With this week's reset, the Siren Isles weekly quests and rares and all that stuff rotated, so I was able to finish up all the Siren Isle achievements, starting with Cleanup on Isle Siren, which is just to kill all the rares, Sirenity Now, which is to complete all the weeklies, and then I'll Remember You, which is the meta achievement for the island. And then because I got that, I also was able to get the You Shall Not Pass achievement, which is the Season 1 meta achievement that'll be part of the expansion meta later on. So far, I think the Season 1 meta isn't really that difficult, so if you're going to want to get the expansion meta at the end of the expansion, from the stuff that we have up to this point is really not that tedious or hard or even long to get. So if you find yourself with time now or sometime before the end of the expansion, I would definitely work on those a little bit because then you can just focus on the 11.2 and 0.3 stuff later on. A couple more achievements that I got, starting with Trading Post Enthusiast. This is just to get the Trading Post rewards for 12 months. And then there's a hidden feat of strength called The More You Know. This is just to use the 2022 Christmas gift to throw and then catch 100 stars. It took about 20 minutes total for us to finish this, so it wasn't that bad, it was just kind of tedious. But then this week I was looking at my achievements and I was looking at the main achievement window, and I noticed that there are a few sections that the progression bars are far less than all the other ones. Professions and pet battles are definitely the ones I have the least of, and those I just really need to get up more. And then PvP is another one that has, over the years, the progress bar has shrunk and shrunk because of more achievements being added and myself not really engaging in PvP a whole lot. But specifically those first 2, professions and pet battles, I would like to focus a little bit more on those to get those bars up because there's a lot of achievements that I'm missing there, and those are the biggest offenders for making this whole progress bar look not great. So from now until season 2, I'm probably going to be playing a little bit more casually and just doing stuff that isn't really important, like quests from Shadowlands, for example, with my Covenants. But I also want to spend some time working on those 2 areas of achievements, and hopefully buff those bars up a little bit and get closer to 45k, which was my goal for the expansion. And then moving into the mounts of the week, I was able to get quite a bit. Starting with the Shadow of Doubt, this is from the You Shall Not Pass achievement, the Season 1 meta. It's kind of a similar color to the Halifal Renown one, which I'm not a fan of. I wish this was a little bit more unique, but I got this one. For I'll Remember You, which is the Siren Isle achievement, I got the Breaker Song. I think it's almost exactly the same as one of the old store mounts or like the 6-month subscription mounts, so it's also not very unique. From the trading post, I was able to get the Savage Alabaster Battle Turtle, which looks pretty cool, as well as the Brilliant Sunburst Peafowl, which I also like. And then lastly, NVIDIA had this event or something that was going on this weekend. I don't really understand it that much. I got the Armored Bloodwing from that. I don't know what I did to do that, but I got a mount, so I'm not going to complain. In other news, while I was leveling, I watched a ton of stuff, so I went through a bunch of things this past week. I finished the 2016 Berserk anime, which I liked. It wasn't bad, it wasn't great. It was watchable though, so no complaints. I finished Fargo Season 3, which I really wasn't a fan of. The show has kind of dipped since Season 1. This season's story was not very interesting, and it felt like a lot of nothing in between very few pieces of something. I watched a new Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim? It didn't really feel like Lord of the Rings to me, and it just, I don't know, wasn't that great, so that was kind of a mess. I finally got around to watching Deadpool and Wolverine, which was fine. Also, I kind of have Ryan Reynolds fatigue, so I'm not as hyped about this movie as everyone else was. And the Wolverine franchise is one of my least favorite superhero things of all time. But this one was good. Again, it was watchable. It was fine for what it was. From there, I watched Madame Web, which wasn't as bad as people said it was. I also love any sort of like time dilation or time travel or anything time related in movies, so this was definitely up my alley. And then lastly, I watched Unfrosted, which is Jerry Seinfeld's retelling of the history of the Pop-Tart. I love this movie and I'm definitely going to rewatch it. It's just a silly, funny joke of a movie. And I feel like it was different than many other comedies because this one didn't have a love story. This one didn't have some heartfelt moments where there's a lesson learned. It was just joke upon joke upon joke upon joke, and it was just so good. No one was playing the straight man, and it made for a fantastic movie. So if you're looking for a comedy, I would definitely recommend that. So that is it for me. That is all the stuff that I did this past week. Let me know how your week went. What are you up to in game? What are you working on? What are you up to outside of the game? And again, what you thought of the anniversary event now that it's over. If you didn't see last week's video, you can click on the playlist at the end of this video. And there's also a randomly selected video that you might like, so check that out if it sounds interesting. So thanks for watching, I love you lots, and I will talk at you next week.